by all means, it was God protecting me that night.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, like when I was, he got 20 shots off on me that night.
Jeez.
And didn't hit.
It didn't hit. Yeah.
Okay. And, a few shots while I was standing up, I got knocked to the ground that night.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And by all means, I know who knocked me to the ground.
Yeah.
Had I been standing up, I'd be dead. I'd probably be dead.
Right.
I was an open target. And then. I'm ready.
This is the Brown Duke Gun Show. My name is JP Garcia. Here today with a special guest, a new old buddy who came. You guys have seen him on the live stream during the Blake Miguez event a few months ago. What do you say?
Yeah, about 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah. So William Wallis with Wallis For America. He has a podcast out there.
Freedom.
There you go. Where can they find your stuff?
William Wallis For America. Remember, it's spelled W-A-L-L-I-S.
Mm-hmm.
It's spelled the right way, Wallace. I tell people, remember, William Wallace is I-S for America.
There you go.
And that's where you can find on all podcast apps, on all Rumble, YouTube, when they're not censoring me.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
Facebook and Instagram and all that. Twitter. Wallace For America.
I'm surprised you're not on Spotify. You don't want to do... Are you on Spotify?
I am on Spotify, but
Okay.
Lipson's just my podcast host.
Oh, okay.
And so once I put that on there, they put it on Spotify
They
and
blast it out to
on everybody else like that. So
Okay.
yeah, we just have. I'm always looking for where we're losing freedom in America, where where we have to fight for it, and fighting doesn't mean we have to go get our pitchforks.
Sure.
I can't say the other thing sometimes, right?
Well, you can say it on here. Right?
Exactly. It doesn't mean get your guns. It just means you got to always be aware. Fighting for a right can be as little as just being aware.
Sure. Well, I think that's what you wanted to get into a little bit today, right?
Right.
Talking about our freedoms, looking at our freedoms, and then we wanted to we were talking off air about responsibility with all of this constitutional carry stuff. Really just that's the kind of stuff that you were thinking about today. So let's dig in, man.
Making sure the phone was on vibrate.
Oh, you're fine
for the audio perspective.
Yeah, you're fine. No problem.
Absolutely. I mean, there's just a lot of. I mean, it's we always talk about our Second Amendment rights and our First Amendment rights.
Yeah.
Of course, pertaining to the Second Amendment on this show. And a lot of people will talk about how they're being infringed, and then of course something happens, and you hear the people going after our rights. But the reality is, it's kind of like being politically active. To be Second Amendment active, I'm just kind of like a real easy way to say it.
Sure.
It's about training and being knowledgeable. Not just saying I've got a gun, I got my right. It's paying attention to the laws. Mm-hmm. It's actually going to the range.
Yeah.
It's maybe just watching some videos.
Sure.
It can be that simple as just watching a gun video, watching a training video.
Yeah.
Because as we discussed when I got carjacked, it was most of what saved me was just having watched some videos, just being aware.
Sure.
And that kind of thing. But also paying attention to the laws, because a lot of people think, oh, I can carry a gun. I got my constitutional carry in Louisiana. And a lot of people don't realize there's a lot that you get when you take a training class.
Yeah.
So I always highly recommend that you should get your concealed carry. Mm-hmm. And the two big reasons is, one, because of the amount of training that you get in it, but and you find all the laws, where you can carry, where you can't carry.
Yeah.
But then even bigger than that is, if you ever travel outside the state, you need to know what state also has reciprocal carry.
Right.
And be aware of that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that is, you hit the nail on the head there. And we've had shows, or at least topics, discussed about this before, is that when you decide that you are going to exercise your right to carry, you need to know the law.
Right.
You need to know, and not just the law from your bros.
Right.
And what you can interpret from online, because I mean, neither of us are legal scholars,
right?
Exactly. I can tell you, and that's not wrong. But laws are written by lawyers generally, and so to understand, to have somebody who is trained by the state to explain where you can and can't carry, where you're inbounds and out of bounds. Number one, to carry your firearm, but then also number two, what is a justified shooting? What is a justified protection of yourself? Right? So it's, one of the things that people have always talked about with who are not necessarily in the gun community, and I'm sure you've heard this,
right,
is, well, why can't they fire a warning shot? Why shouldn't you just fire warning shots? It's like, guys, we're not Yosemite Sam.
Right.
Right? This is not Looney Tunes. You can't just pull your gun out and start shooting. There are rules,
right,
because those bullets go somewhere.
Exactly.
And you need to know, if you're making that decision, I hope you are. I hope everybody out there who has the right and ability to carry a firearm carries their firearm, right? Let's do that.
Right.
Do it. But also know when you can and can't use it, right?
Exactly.
And because if you don't know when you can and can't use it, then there's no sense in carrying it in a sense. Because so if you pull out your gun and you're not justified to use your firearm, then you're going away.
Right. You're going away for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's a great point, JP. It's a fantastic point, because what happens is you might have the right, you might know how to carry it, and then you might know exactly when you should and should not use it, and you might have trained. Yeah. But if you did not know that you weren't supposed to carry it in a certain place, right, and you have to use it, well, guess what? There's laws that work against you.
You're in trouble there too.
Nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's one of those things. So here's a gray area, a perfectly normal gray area type topic of where, are you allowed to or not? And I'm not going to go into whether you're allowed to or not, right? But you need to take the class, right? The point is you need to take the class. So here's the scenario. You have somebody who's attacking you. They've drawn a firearm on you. They pointed it at you, right? And so now you have drawn your firearm and you are going to engage them, okay? This person then sees your firearm, turns around, and starts running away, okay? Threat or no threat.
Exactly.
Are you going to shoot that guy or not shoot that guy, right?
They're running away. You can't shoot them.
Exactly. Well, that our opinion, yes.
Correct.
Right? So we're not lawyers. You gotta,
exactly right.
You have to go through the class and you have to figure out, because they talk about this stuff.
Exactly right.
These are the scenarios, and this is just one of them. There are plenty. Another one, when you were carjacked, your wife was part of that altercation as well. Right. And so that changes the dynamics of everything.
Right, because he was using her as a human shield.
Correct.
So I had to make the decision, I can't just shoot.
Right.
Of course, if that happened, it's also about shot placement.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's like if you have to be aware of your surroundings, because maybe, there's a fine line of when you can pull that trigger. In that case, he's using her as a human shield, but maybe you're in a crowded area.
Yeah.
Is it wise to use it if you're at a, let's say you're at a festival, because you can't carry at a festival.
Can't carry at a festival.
Exactly.
Right.
So, but if you're someplace that's near a lot of people where you are allowed to carry,
right,
you got to worry about these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I'm going to, we can swerve back and forth here, but I'm going to quickly turn into turn into the training part of the discussion, right? Because, it's not, so you have to know the law, and you also have to know your abilities and be able to also exercise those abilities and improve, right? Because one of the things that I've heard some instructors say, and it makes a lot of sense, is that you and I, if we're facing each other, may not have the correct angle, because one of the cardinal firearm rules is know what's your target and what's behind it, okay? If there's something behind my target that I can't hit, say a kid, or, somebody, some sort of innocent bystander, so, well, I can't take that shot.
Right.
Right. So, but maybe I change my angle, maybe I kneel down, or maybe I get to a different place where it becomes then a different shot.
Correct.
Okay. I'm not prescribing any of this. What I'm saying is you need to get training.
That's right.
Right. So, because all of that stuff is, how do you use your gun, right? It's not where to use 100%. Your gun. So you need both. I think, and we talked about this off air, when you look at something like constitutional carry, which I think everybody should have, all states need to have, where you can, if you feel that you need to carry your firearm in your protection, there should be no law stopping you from carrying a firearm for your protection, right?
Right.
That said, you should also take the class, right? Because the other thing is you get for the class is that you get the concealed carry card from your state, and then from a reciprocity standpoint, then you can go around to other states.
100%. Yeah, because if you have, even though we have constitutional carry, you can't go to another state and constitutional carry unless they also have constitutional carry.
Right.
So a lot of people don't realize that. Like, hey, I got constitutional carry in my state. I can go, to Florida or Alabama or whatever the case may be.
Nope.
Well, if they don't have constitutional carry, you can't carry.
Where do you look up? Where's your favorite map to look up reciprocity laws and stuff like that?
I got to tell you, when I travel, I just kind of if I Google it or whatever kind of thing, and see who has it. But I've also got a book that I just got that has all the laws in all 50 states.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And so it tells you, so you can say, hey, I'm going to whatever state, and you can open up that state and you can say they have, reciprocity, they've got constitutional carry, they've got whatever they might have.
Yeah.
So that way you can check out the laws. If you're traveling this state, your gun, the magazine cannot be in the same state with your gun.
Yeah.
I think that's a California.
We're in California.
The bullets have to be in one state. The magazine has to be in another state. And the gun has to be in another state, right?
Disassembled. One part in the truck, one part in the glove box. Yeah,
right,
I've been to Chicago. No, I know.
Exactly. But you know what's interesting, and I don't want to make this change our topic. I want to kind of bounce back to the topic, but something that keeps that's been resonating in my mind lately is comfort.
Okay.
And I don't mean comfort on, like we talked about earlier, on how you carry, your gun, like some people appendix carry, which, I'm always concerned about where that bullet would go. Anyway, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's okay. No. It is a concern. People are concerned about that.
But comfort level, we have a lot of people that, we got constitutional carry. I would get a gun, but I'm just uncomfortable having a gun. Or even bigger yet, I've had a lot of people say, I bought a gun, but I'm just not comfortable with it.
Yep.
Or I bought a handgun and I don't want to carry it because I'm not comfortable. Or I got a gun, but I'm afraid to use it.
Right.
And that's, somebody, and I'm just kind of probably generalizing here and hypothesizing a little bit. Those people inside know, hey, we have a Second Amendment right. I want to defend myself. I'm afraid to lose my rights.
Yeah.
Politically, that might be influenced. The environmentally in their area, they might be influenced by crime, but they don't get past that comfort level.
Yeah.
And there's lots of training for that. I mean, not only is it going to the range and saying, hey, I'm now comfortable with this gun, not only going to a concealed carry class and being comfortable with it, but if I can discuss a little bit what made me comfortable.
Yeah, sure.
Like when I first started getting a gun, I was like, ooh. I was like, I don't want to touch it. It might go off.
Yeah.
Then of course I started handling the gun unloaded.
Sure.
Okay. With, of course, like an unloaded gun's just a hammer.
Right.
But when to get comfortable with it, I would have the gun maybe in my room, where I was carry it eventually, in my pocket, to kind of like, okay, this isn't, because you almost have a little bit of uncomfortableness,
right?
Going, ooh, I'm not used to having a gun on me. And then when you start carrying, and have that responsibility, you're kind of like, oh my gosh, what if it goes off in the room? Right. It's a comfort level. People, what happens if I have to use it? It's a comfort level that a lot of people who aren't going the ranges, but know they have that right to do.
Yeah.
So like for me, again, it was just having it, handling it, unload, making sure it was unloaded.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, okay, learning to put the safety on. Okay, this is not going to fire. Or, learning the just different things, just feeling it, just feeling up my gun, knowing where the safety was and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Then when I started carrying, of course, I wanted to go with the safety because I was afraid it would just go off.
Yeah.
And then I started talking to people, well, they carry that out of safety. It was a comfort level for me too. So then you start learning how to not have the safety on, how you train, you're always, you have that comfort level where you're always know that when you grab your gun, your finger is trained to not go on the trigger.
Yes.
So there's a whole nother, there's a training level that we're talking about, but there's also a comfort level. And I think there are a lot of people that would like to carry, want their gun rights, but they're afraid.
Yeah.
And I think there's things they need to go through to get through the fear to be able to get to the training that they not only are trained, but they're also a like an extra sense of comfort level with it.
Yeah. Well, I'll trade stories with you. I don't know if I shared this with you when we did the live, but when I started carrying, my story is it's kind of a interesting, twofold story, right? So I received my first firearm from my dad. Okay, he gifted me a Sig P226. Okay,
Nice.
Fantastic. Like when I turned of age, boom, here it is. Here you go, son. And we went out and we shot it and the whole thing, right? So shooting was fun. Okay,
Right.
And then he hits me with the next thing you need to do, son, is you need to get your concealed. Okay. Happy birthday. I'm paying for your concealed. You're going to this person. You're going to learn, it was within
Right.
days of each other, right? Because it's like, okay, now you have the firearm. Now you're getting your concealed.
I like your
Boom,
dad.
right? Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, but so I had the concealed, I had the firearm. I didn't really do anything with it. I mean, I still kept it in the case, I never carried it because I was like, oh, why am I going to, right? Fast forward to school, right? I was in university at the time and I was actually in student government. Okay. And school will go nameless. So nobody, if you know me well enough, you know where I went to school.
Right.
I was part of student government and I was part of some controversy. So much so that there were certain student groups that they would leave me notes in my office, and say, don't walk to your car alone today, that kind of stuff. Right.
Oh, wow. I didn't know this.
Oh yeah. So, I'm brash and 21. I'm like, well, F you.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
If you want it, come get it. Right. Like,
Right. Exactly. Come take it.
I'm
Yeah.
stupid, because people were like, oh, you need to have security in this. I was like, forget security.
Right.
Like I can handle this, And so, okay, well, I need to figure out how I'm going to carry this gun. Can't carry the gun at a university. There are no universities
Right.
that I know of in anywhere that you can carry a gun. I'm not proposing that you carry a gun at the university. That is illegal. I did not do that. But everywhere where I could carry, I carried, right? Not knowing what I was doing. Okay. So I had the gun, I had the magazine loaded, but as a lot of people do, because I was not comfortable, I didn't carry it chambered, right? And I don't know if you went through this particular part of your carry, but it took me a long
Safety,
time.
not having one chambered.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So I had the decocker and all of that stuff, but I never carried chambered. I'll let you know what it took. It took almost 10 years, 9 years before I started carrying chambered. When did I start carrying chambered? When I started competing. And it was, and I'll save the whole story for another time when my first competitions, right? But the fact of the matter is, they're part of the competition. Sometimes they can ask you to do certain things with your firearm, right? One of the things was unloaded start. Okay. So magazine out, gun is cold, nothing in the chamber, hammer down and all that stuff. Magazine's on the other side. You're on the clock. You've got to load it, all the way yourself. And then, then you start shooting. Right.
Right.
The first time I practiced this, and I'm coming clean. The first time I practiced this was on a stage, and I maybe had been shooting for less than 2 weeks, 3 weeks, shooting competition. Okay. It may have taken me 5-7 seconds. I don't know. It seemed like forever to get the gun loaded and into a configuration where I could shoot something. Okay. Not let alone hit anything.
Right. Right.
But just to start shooting, And then I started to think, 5 seconds? I would have been dead 10 times already.
Right, exactly.
So then, so the combination of realizing how bad I was, right? And then what competition does, or at least what it did for me, is more than anything, it would get me reps behind the gun. Okay. And as I became more comfortable unloading and loading the gun, having a loaded firearm on my hip, even though it was only for 15 or 20 seconds at a time, and proving to myself time and time again that I could draw a finger off the trigger because the range officers are watching. And if my finger went on that trigger before it was supposed to, you get kicked out of the match, right?
Oh, wow, right, exactly.
Yeah. So safety violations for the most part, no joke, right? So, like making sure my finger's off the trigger, boom, and then I could do all of that stuff. At that point, that's when I started, okay, if I can do this repeatedly and I haven't shot myself or anybody else, in X amount of time, okay, I can carry chambered.
Right.
But it took that level of commitment and that level of training, or getting behind the gun
It's a great
in those
point.
situations just to feel comfortable. So I can only imagine for people who don't compete or haven't taken any classes, it's gotta be like you may as well cross the Pacific Ocean in a kayak, right?
Right, exactly.
You're not going to carry. So
Exactly. Well, and that's what saved my life when I got carjacked.
Sure.
That the gun was loaded. Now, granted, I had the safety on, but on that particular gun, and the reason why, I mean, it just depends on scenario.
You're supposed to have the safety on. It's okay.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like some people are like, oh, you have a safety on your gun. I'm like, yeah. They're like, what do you have, a 22?
Yeah.
I get you get the jokes like that, but but for me, I still. Depending on the scenario. I mean, I was coming from my brother's house. I'm like, I don't need to have the safety off at my brother's house.
Right.
Well, maybe. I don't know. It's a family party. You never know.
Yeah.
But I mean, just that particular day, I had my pocket carry and safety on because I just of where the environment that I was in. So I didn't.
Let me pause you there.
Sure.
You had the safety on because you were a responsible gun owner. Anybody listening to this who carries with the safety off, you have lost your mind. You train with the safety on. There is no reason for you to carry without the safety.
Yeah, that's right. That's a great example.
I pause that because I don't want anybody to make any mistakes.
I'm glad you said that. I mean, like some people don't, and that's their personal. But
they've lost their mind.
Exactly. So I had safety on, but because I've spent time, and I don't know how many hours or whatever training, getting comfortable with my gun. It was more than just going to the range and shooting. It was that I've actually had spent time, and this is what we've talked about throughout the show, of getting comfortable.
Yeah,
getting comfortable in my hand, sitting putting it, making sure it's unloaded, putting an empty magazine, clearing it several times just to make sure. Even though you clear it once, I always clear it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, that's okay.
Take the safety off, take the safety on. But, I sit there and just with my finger, take the safety off. So my hand knew that when it grabbed that gun, because as gun people, we might have 2 or 3 different guns that we carry in different scenarios. That particular gun, I knew when I grabbed it where the safety was, where what I needed to do to get the safety off. I've trained, I've felt it, I'm comfortable with it.
Right.
I know exactly the placement. I've shot it enough to know, okay, in some cases I tend to pull to the left or right sometime, to know when my finger hits the trigger and when it's time to put your finger on the trigger, I know with that feel, down to the feel of where that trigger needs to be on the palm of my finger.
Sure.
To know that I'm gonna pull the trigger straight and not, where it's in the crease where it's gonna slide and and go to the left or to the right or shank it. As a golfer would say, right? Yeah. So when I grabbed my gun, I already knew my thumb already is passing over that safety, and when my thumb feels that safety on, because I've done that 100 so times, it's on. Boom.
What were you carrying that day?
Smith & Wesson 380 Bodyguard.
Oh, okay. And so that's the old shield body.
It's the
old shield body with the little.
Well, I don't think it was the old shield. It was the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard was like their pocket carry.
Okay.
And then they have the Smith & Wesson MP Shield.
Okay.
They
had that in 380 also.
They do. I don't know. I didn't know that.
Okay.
I didn't know that they had I didn't know the Shield came in a 380. But the Bodyguard is only a 380.
Maybe that's where I'm getting confused. Maybe there were similar form factors, but I know the Shield had a thumb safety.
Yes.
So same. It was like a thumb safety, like a tiny M&P.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. It was a Ruger.
A slim line. You probably had
LCP,
9 rounds in it.
Whatever it is. Yeah. It's 7 rounds.
7 rounds. Okay.
And so it was like, was it 7? I had
7 and 1.
I had 6 and 1, I think.
Okay.
I say 6 and 1. So I had 7 rounds in the gun that night. It's kind of was an easy number, lucky 7, kind of remember.
Got it. Yeah.
So I always knew I had 7 rounds in it. So I mean, because I was counting. I mean, like as I was in the, I could go through and go, okay, I shot once here, twice here, 4 times here.
Right.
And so I can kind of, and again, that's kind of comes with training. And a lot of people go, well, that again, it's that comfort level. They go, well, how will I ever know? I'm not going to count while I'm shooting him in an incident. But when you train and you go to the range and you're at the range and you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, you're counting because you want to know, when you're going to be empty, or in your case, you're doing competitive shooting, it becomes more of a natural second nature thing.
Yeah. Well, and I can tell you from competing that while I'm running a stage, I don't exactly know where my round count is, but I have a good feeling that I'm close.
Right, exactly.
So, but a lot of the feedback, the negative feedback that people give on competitive shooting is that it's choreographed, right? That you have time to make a plan and you know where you're going to do your reloads and all of these things, which is true. But that is assuming that all perfect conditions, everything goes the way you want it to, and you don't have any makeup shots. Right? And look, makeup shots happen.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Is that the bogey?
Yeah.
Or is it, it's the mulligan shot.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Look, sometimes, and you'll know, because I'm going to get you out there. You're going to know that, oh man, if we put a far target out there and you have the best 2 scored rounds. It's like, did I hit it? So you just, pop another one.
Right.
If you don't think you hit it, pop another one. Right. And it's, whatever. That happens to, very beginner shooters all the way up to the world champion level shooters. Sometimes their eyes that looked weird. Right. But, at the elite levels, at the very higher levels of shooting, you'll start to see where you're so in touch with your gear that you're like, that felt weird. Something was off there.
Exactly.
So I just need to take another shot or something. And it goes back to your carry gear too. You'll train the same way. And at some point, it's not like I'm now in I'm thinking, or I'm putting words in your mouth in a little bit, but it's not like so much that you're counting every single 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right, exactly.
At some point, you just viscerally know, okay, I'm close.
Right. Well, this particular night, the reason why I knew exactly how many I'd shot is because it was very distinct.
Oh, there
was a very distinct moments.
Sure.
But you're right. In your situation, when you're competitive shooting, there's a you could pull twice, and when you thought maybe pull once or whatever, and
exactly
instinctively you went, that felt weird, and you go do the next shot.
Right.
But it goes back again to that comfort, like when to the people that I want to really reach and resonate with are the ones that want to exercise their Second Amendment rights, because we should all be carrying not only responsibly, but the more people that carry, the more safe our society is.
Absolutely.
In general, and make it fun, like you do competitive shooting, which you're going to get me into.
Yeah.
You make it fun. Like, I can honestly say that I probably would have landed a shot that night had I had more active type of training like you're going to take me to when we do the thing. But I will tell you something that's analogous to what you said.
Yeah.
When competitive shooters kind of eye up where they hit or know where they hit. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I told you this when I did the interview last. My wife and I had the opportunity the next morning to go back and see the car.
Okay.
That was because they had remember in the story, the carjacker ended up getting our car, totaling it in the woods 45 minutes away. Mm-hmm. They towed the car that night to the Rapides Parish Sheriff's impound, or to their car yard or whatever it was, and or evidence yard. And so we got to go there the next morning and look at the car. Mm-hmm. And one of the things so I stood on because I was on the passenger side that night. Yeah. And so one of the first things I did, because it kept going through my head, what I hit. Yeah. And, because for training purposes, and not only that for training, but just, wondering where the spent bullets went.
Sure.
And so I walked up to the car on the passenger side, and I went to the angle where I was shooting from. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at the car. And I remember the police officer saying, "You want to see if you hit it, didn't you?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "Yeah, I do." And so there was no bullet holes on the car.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I didn't hit the car. So I know that while I was shooting at somebody who was basically, shoulders up over the top of the car initially, and then over the hood of the car.
Right.
The next time I'm looking, did I hit on the hood? Yeah. Did I hit the windshield?
Did you drop? Did you pull?
Exactly. So I know that I was in the plane of his, from his shoulders to his head. I was in that plane.
Did you go back to the convenience store?
I did. As a matter of fact, when we get off air, I'll show you.
Okay.
I did. I went back because that was one of the things that I felt helped my wife, because that's
pretty traumatic.
I might touch on this a little bit. This might help listeners a little bit. This is something I didn't share with you initially. And if I'm talking too much, just shut me up.
No, man. Let's go. Let's go. I'm just checking the time to make sure, because I know you need to go somewhere later.
Oh, yeah, later on. So what's interesting is I was checking to see, did I hit the car? Because if I hit the car, I'm totally low.
Yeah.
On it. And I didn't think I'd be. I knew that I wouldn't be shooting over his head, because I mean that's from a shooter's angle. People, to get over somebody's head,
make sense.
I'm
you
shooting.
Had to point up.
Yeah, point up almost. So I know that I was in that plane, on that same plane with him.
Right.
And so that, was something that, kind of, made me feel better that I knew was at least, in the money, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you asked about if I went back to the gas station, because that's an excellent point. On training and comfort level. So my wife used to say the reason why she didn't want to conceal carry is because she didn't know that she'd be comfortable having a gun on her body. She grew up in an era before concealed carry, when a woman can just carry a gun in their purse.
Right.
And then, of course, the laws change, and you got to be respectful, and concealed carry comes out, and women can't do that anymore.
Right.
And she said, "Well, I don't want to have a gun on me. I'm a and I don't want to be on the on the books. I got to conceal carry and whatnot, kind of thing." So she, out of lack of comfort, didn't have her gun on her. Okay. So, and that, hers was in the car. So she didn't have hers on her. So had she had her gun on her after he knocked her to the ground, I mean, anybody go back and see this episode on your, when I told the whole story on yours live, and then also on my show, you can see a one that says carjacked and gunfight, back, earlier last year.
Sure.
So she'll say, when she was got knocked to the ground and he was lowering the gun to her, there was a moment when she could have if she would have had a gun on her, she would have had,
she could have plugged him.
She's 3 feet away from him.
Yeah.
And it would have been over right then and there. And then the second time was when, after he pulled the gun off of her, when he was at the point when I had taken a shot, and then he pulled the gun on me and was shooting at me. She's like, at the moment y'all were shooting each other, she says, I was just laying there. If I would have had my gun on me, I would have had another opportunity to shoot him. I was only 3 feet away from him. I would have got him.
Right.
Well, because of the event, and it's a two-part answer to your thing, because of the event, she was, and I am going to get to the part where we went back to
That's
the
okay,
store.
Yeah.
Because of that event, I don't know that she was traumatized.
Well, I mean, that makes sense if she was.
Yeah, exactly. She was more angry that she felt helpless. She was not empowered. And there was a lot of trauma. There was a lot of stuff that she had to work through. I guess,
yeah.
To your point, yes. There was a lot of trauma still, there. Good point. But she wasn't like waking up in the middle of the night in nightmares. It was anger. It was, there was some fear there that it could happen again. So what I did in my situation, for not only comfort level for her, but also for training.
Yeah.
So this is why I'm glad you're bringing it up. I take a long time to answer questions, don't I?
It's great for podcasts.
It started for the day but my answers always start from the day I was born.
Well, there you go.
So from the day I was born, and then 50 years later, you're getting the answer, right?
Yeah.
So what we did, we actually ended up taking some trips. I told you I went to Wisconsin, for the RNC convention. I was a delegate, and my wife went with me, and she went to visit, and I dropped off in Kansas at a friend's house. Well, on that trip, we started carrying. I trained her with another gun.
Okay.
I said I brought her to the range. I made her comfortable with the gun. We went to the range. She felt it. I said, same thing. That's with your eyes closed. I want you to feel, unloaded gun. I want you to feel that gun. I want you to cock it. I want you to hold it. I want you to, I want you to,
Get acquainted.
get acquainted with it, with your eyes closed kind of thing. Now look at it. And, and then when we traveled, we put that gun in the car.
Okay. Yeah.
And I said, and unloaded it at some points. And, but before we went on the trip, we sat in the car and I'd say, okay, there's somebody walking up on the passenger side. Mm-hmm. What are you doing? Right. We trained through the scenario. She knew where the gun was. She said, well, I'm going to do this, Yeah. Okay. He's coming up on my side. What are we doing? Right. He's coming up. We see him coming to the front of the car. 2 guys are coming up. Right. We trained through it. Sure. We talked through scenarios because I had watched videos. I had gone through the scenarios with people that, were in law enforcement. I'd gone through the scenarios of other people, friends that had been through or been trained, that I've gone through those scenarios mentally, which is why I felt that I was able to, really, survive that carjacking. Sure. And so I realized that my wife, not only a lack of empowerment, but and the trauma or the fear that was residual left over, that she was because she felt powerless. Mm-hmm. She felt uncomfortable. Right. And so because, and then on a couple of little car trips that we took, we would train. I'd say, okay, so, go through some scenarios again, grab the gun. Of course, we're making sure it's unloaded, when we're training. Sure. Grab for the gun, reach the gun. Okay. We would do all these different scenarios. So now I noticed, and the other thing that I did on a personal note, to help her through that trauma was, even though her and I were together, we both knew what happened. Yeah. I never asked her perspective. Okay. Yeah. How'd you feel when you were on the ground? Yeah. Like, what went through your head? Yeah. When he pulled us out of the car, what happened? I never asked her side of the story or how she felt. I was there. I saw it, right? I don't need to ask her. Sure. But asking her side, letting her talk about it, letting her get her feelings out that she felt powerless and she felt helpless and she felt, vulnerable and regretful and, and then not having, and then of course knowing that and taking her through training. Mm-hmm. And look, JP, it's not like it's anything fancy. Yeah. Like, people think training has to be join the military, go to law enforcement.
Zip lines and freaking rucksacks and
Exactly. They think they gotta, look, don't get me wrong, the concealed carry course is great training. But don't feel like you have to go like, it's really just thinking through it.
So I have a counterpoint on that. I think that concealed carry is great information. Right. Great information.
Exactly.
There's a difference between concealed carry information and training, because for the concealed carry instructors that I've talked to, and so I've had concealed carry in 3 different states. Okay. Nice. And the firearm training that we received wasn't really, it was more gun operation and can you shoot a group than it was really, mechanics of, okay, right. Here's where your trigger, here's what your grip pressure needs to be. Here's how you need to have your eyes, right. Your stance, blah, blah, blah. Right. That type of thing, I submit, is training that happens outside of concealed. And I think it's really necessary. Right. Agree. And having been through both, kind of carrying a gun without it, and then having gone through training, and then, now having been through a lot of training, I mean, it's night and day, right? Where, the confidence level that you feel when you actually receive proper training that is focused on the fundamentals of, how to press the trigger and how to grip and how to do reloads and how to do all of that stuff, right? The gun handling, the gun manipulation. I don't think that in a 6-hour or however many hour concealed carry course, you can get all of that nuance, because they have to go through all the law.
Exactly.
Also, So the only reason I counterpoint that is because I hope that everybody listening who carries gets training.
Exactly.
Get training.
Exactly.
My wife has training, and I didn't give it to her. I hired people to train her.
So no, I get your point. Absolutely, 100% perfect, and I agree that everybody should get concealed carry with not a friend or a relative.
Sure.
It's a great idea because they're going to listen differently, and so the training that I offered my wife wasn't. It wasn't just more training to be comfortable, and it was that too, but it was training and conversation to help her get through her trauma and make her feel more empowered.
100%.
And then also training when her and I are together. Like when we're in the car together, we have a protocol. It's almost like this is ended up being some good information, I think. It's almost like when you go get your concealed carry license, you also learn about respect for police officers.
Sure.
If you're in a scenario like, and I'm not teaching this, I'm just kind of giving the gist of it. You kind of learn, hey, if I'm in an area where I know there's law enforcement and there's an active shooter, I'm not just gonna pull my gun out and start shooting. You got to give like that hat tip to the law enforcement that's there. If I'm at dinner with, some law enforcement friends, and I know they're carrying, you got some kind of communication where, there is, hey, they kind of know, all right, we're aware of each other, having a gun. You're just not gonna like, it's almost like, when you're in baseball, and that ball goes right to center field, and the left fielder and the right fielder, I don't know the positions real well, and they start running, and one waves like, I got it.
Yeah.
The other one stops.
Exactly.
It's almost like kind of like that. But for my wife, I know how my wife is. She would be she would in a panic moment would grab, but because we've trained, she knows when we're together, someone comes up on the right, I got it. So it comes on the left, so there's that way.
That's important. So, and I think to clarify for the listeners, what you guys were doing, that level of training is scenario based. That is also correct. Like that is what you need.
Right.
What I'm talking about is just how to shoot, right? You guys weren't reviewing how to shoot. You were talking about, hey, if somebody comes up on my left, you do this and I'll do this. And then vice versa. You guys are talking about scenarios.
Right.
That is planning with your teammate. Right?
Exactly.
Like that's more of a, tactical type of discussion where, you guys are working and figuring out how to work as a team. And I think that is also very, very important. And, don't think of what I said as like, that's not what you're doing.
Right. Exactly.
But I guess what I'm saying is all of these things need to happen. If you're going to be, especially if you're married, and both of you carry, these are the types of conversations. You need to start at ground zero. Boom. Let's teach you how to shoot a firearm. Second, boom. Let's get your concealed. Third, hey, now you and I are both carrying. Let's figure out who's doing what. Okay, who's covering the kids? Who's doing this? Like, what are you,
Right. Who's covering the kids? They got their own guns.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, of course they're 22s, but I mean,
yeah, whatever. So
yeah. And it's funny to get back to finish kind of your question too. So a few months ago, my wife and I were traveling that neck of the woods where the carjacking was.
Yeah,
and we've actually passed it a couple times.
Okay,
because the family property, her relatives and stuff like that. We've passed it a couple times since then, but. We were getting ready to pass it, and I said, let's stop. She says, why? I said, because I think it'd be good. I haven't been back.
Yeah.
You haven't been back. She took a sigh, and I could just tell, and she said, because the training through it, getting her comfort, that helped her a lot, but there was still...
Oh, sure.
There was still that fear, and it was during the day. I didn't go back. The incident happened at night. I didn't try to...
Had the M16 in the trunk.
Yeah, right, exactly. We had the gun turret mounted on top. I had my grenades,
There you go. Yeah, we're ready.
We don't have grenades.
No.
But we had... But anyway, so we went during the day, and she's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. She was like, are you sure? Like, I'm sure.
Yeah.
She's like, Okay. And so we got there, and and the bullet holes are still in the brick walls.
Okay, where he fired.
Where he fired is at one, because there was a point when I was on the ground and he was shooting on the ground. Those divots I couldn't find. I saw him that night. But there was a point when I had crawled behind the brick wall when he was shooting at me, and I got pictures of the hole in the brick.
Yeah.
One of the holes, where it was, and she's like, and she looked, and she says, she's like, it kind of resonated with her, like to not only be back where we were, but to like when she saw the bullet hole, and she's like, that's when you were behind the brick wall. I went, yeah. And it resonated with her.
Sure.
And so then we went inside, and the manager that was on duty the night we got carjacked does not work there anymore.
Okay.
But he was there visiting at that moment.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he
just happenstance.
He happened to be there. So she got to really get a lot out. Like you could just tell.
Right.
It got a lot out. And I do want to bring up more than a hat tip, more than a gratefulness, here. By all means, it was God protecting me that night.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, when I was, he got 20 shots off on me that night.
Jeez.
And didn't hit.
Hit. Yeah.
Okay. And, a few shots while I was standing up, I got knocked to the ground that night. Okay. And by all means, I know who knocked me to the ground.
Yeah.
Had I been standing up, I'd be dead. I'd probably be dead.
Right.
I was an open target. And then, fast forward to, we go back to see that day and to have that manager who doesn't work there anymore. They're visiting, and for my wife to be able to thank him, for his, for when his responsiveness, and for his just compassion that night, after the incident, and even though that wasn't, it was a lot for the night,
sure,
but to see her be able to go, wow, this is like, it just kind of helped close that loop for her, the comfort level, the training, talking her way through it, for her to go back to the site, see it. She was able to put closure.
That's good.
On it. And so I felt like that was almost divine too, that he was there, because it kind of helped her close that loop.
Sure.
Having that person that was there that night, see the gunshot, see the, everything, and then it kind of helped close the loop.
Yeah.
And the only thing I'll add to that, and I'm not being a tough guy here, but well, didn't you have trauma?
Yeah.
And I said, well, not really. Oh yeah, you had trauma. I'm like, well, I'll put it this way. Self-defense is a God-given right. God gave us the right to protect our family and ourselves and our own lives.
Right.
That's a God-given right to do that. Okay. And our founding fathers, when they gave us our Constitution and they put our Second Amendment right in that Constitution, they connected that God-given right in a written document. So I've got God's blessing. I've got our Constitution
right
on my side, and I've trained. So, and I'm going to connect training to what got me through this. The training, people might not connect. Oh, he trained, so he's not going to, have, PTSD, or he's not going to have, some trauma or whatever. He's connected to his training. Well, it is that training that, in my honest opinion, when you train and you're comfortable, back to that comfort, and you're comfortable with your gun, you're comfortable with your rights, you're comfortable in the space where you've studied the laws, you've studied, you're aware, you've trained. When you're in that situation, all of that not only brings you through and helps you through, it's going to help you on the other side.
Sure.
Because you're going to feel like, okay, I've trained for this. I had the right to do it. I'm comfortable. I've been trained, and you're confident, like I am, that that the right thing happened.
Yeah.
And lastly, knowing that God was there for me and my wife, and he gave us a right and protected us.
Well, and for sure, because I mean, the fact that he was 3 foot away from your wife, and he clearly had a lot of ammo shooting at both of you guys.
Well, he could have put a gun in her head. Mm-hmm. Remember now that when we first got out of the car, he was using her as a human shield.
Right.
He had the gun. He had his hand on her back and his gun to her head. Mm-hmm. That's when I didn't have training. Sure. I didn't have a shot. So at that, and the police said the reason why he wanted us dead is we were the 5th victims of the night.
Right.
So he needed to get away. And the reason he didn't shoot her, or the reason he pushed her down to shoot her in the back, was because carjackers, and I'm just telling what the police said,
sure,
that when somebody's carjacking you, they don't shoot you in the car. They don't shoot you right by the car, because then they got to pull you out of the car to get the car. They got, and if they shoot you right by the car, they got to deal with you. Then they got to deal with you. Like if you fall into the car, they got to deal with the body,
right?
Or not that they care about running you over after they shot you, but that's generally why they will, they'll push you away. They'll push you away. In this case, they'll shoot you when you're away, so you can't come back, or you can't call the police or whatever. Right. And so, I would. That's why he was. I pulled him off in the nick of time, because he probably would have shot her than shot me.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, man, I'm glad you're here still.
Yeah. So I'm trying to, not that I was trying to retell the story, but I wanted to, double down on the training that we've been talking about and the comfort level that we've been talking about, and motivate our audience to not only get trained, but find ways to be comfortable with your gun.
Well, and then, as we were talking about in the beginning, know the laws, know your rights.
Yeah. Protect
your rights, do whatever you can to, because like we mentioned, I don't know if it's this show, but I know we talked about it on live that, people are infringing as much as they can on Second Amendment rights, First Amendment rights, all of this stuff. And you and I are both, subject to First Amendment rights, right of free speech. I can tell you without naming them, everybody knows who they are,
right?
Who are, the online folks that are censoring gun content, censoring faith-based content to a certain degree sometimes,
right.
It's out there, it's being targeted. So
exactly,
you got to do what you can, protect your rights. Let's keep them. Let's do what we can to make sure that, whatever legislation is out there doesn't infringe on, what's ours.
That's right.
Right. So
I agree 100%.
Awesome.
So I like hanging out with you,
yeah,
Jay, man.
You're
You're not only an awesome person, but you got good information.
Well, yeah, likewise. And I think I know you've got to skate because you've got another thing that you're shoving off to. Where you this will probably be a show on your side later. Today?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Ironically, I'm going to the town where the carjacker who carjacked my wife and I and stole our car. He took the police on a 45-minute police chase, and they ended up in Kinder, Louisiana.
Oh, okay. No kidding.
Ironically, I'm going to a meeting in that town tonight. And I'm interviewing, 10 to 20, 30 people tonight.
Okay.
So I'll be there, again, some things come full circle, right?
That's right. Well, there you go. Well, I need to get you on the road so you can beat this traffic, but thank you for being on the show.
I thank you for what you're doing. I mean, you'd have an awesome show and you get out good content to people. And I, am not only honored to be on your show, but I would be grateful if your listeners shared your show more to their friends and told more friends about it, because, it's this type of content that not only protects rights, informs people, but, helps bring more people to the table in positive ways. And I thank you for what you're doing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, the whole thing, I think I told you this either offline or before. It's just, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this is to prove that, gun people are not crazy, and that's the stigma out there for us, gun lovers, gun folks, and all of that stuff. And it's just like, no, we're just normal people. Yeah. We just like guns, and just
some people like pink hair.
exactly.
I like black guns.
Well, it's like, let's get racy for a little bit, and I don't want to devolve too much because I know you have to go, but it's like, the LGBT stuff, right? It's like, look, if you want to be gay,
Right.
you want to be whatever,
Go for it.
do your thing.
Yeah, I don't care.
Go,
Freedom.
That's your thing.
Freedom.
You go do it. Don't try to make my kids do it.
Right.
I mean, if they happen to go that way, they happen to go that way, but don't force them.
Right.
I'm not going to force you to have a gun, but don't try to come after me for having a gun, because I train, I do that recreationally and for protection. Right. But, we're not crazy.
Exactly.
That we're just normal people just out there, and it's like, I'll protect your rights and I'll speak for you. Do whatever y'all want to do and just let us do what we want to do.
100%.
Right? And that's the whole thing. And, I appreciate your kind words, and I hope, I hope we can spread the message. So before we go, one more time, how do people get on to hear about your show, your
They go on
stuff?
Facebook, YouTube, or Rumble, and they look William Wallis For America. My last name is spelled Wallis. You go on all podcast apps, William Wallis America. You'll see me with a checkered shirt on. And then you can catch me on Twitter at Wallis For America and Instagram at William Wallis For America.
Okay.
And catch me in all those spots. And I'd be grateful if somebody listened to my show.
Absolutely. You guys get out there. William Wallis For America. Get out there, follow, retweet all of that stuff, do the good things. Because I think when you come back through next time, you're going to shoot a match and we're going to do each other's show again.
You're going to be on my show next time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The longer version.
Well, I really think that the idea of doing a show before the match, shoot the match, and do a show after the match, that would be perfect.
I love it. Let's
do it. Just to get your ideas.
I'm ready.
So, awesome. Well, thank you very much, William.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And we'll catch you next time.
Talk to you soon.